Ahoy gamers, Floor Geneva here. Masters of the Universe is one of those franchises that nobody talks about but everybody is familiar with. Despite not being very active in the past decades, the franchise continues to be recognized as a significant piece of popular culture and its legacy lives on through merchandise and memes,
Joke's on you, I'm into that shit!
including that one infamous video that you've definitely watched if you are above the age of 12. So when the trailer for a new series, subtitled Revelation, dropped, it quickly garnered an insane amount of traction, with people getting excited over the triumphant return of this classic series. Even I felt the hype. I mean, Mark Hamill was playing Skeletor and Kevin Smith was to be the showrunner, quite an impressive lineup if I do say so myself. Now unfortunately I wasn't able to watch the show when it first came out because it happened to line up with our family's vacation trip to a place with 2 weeks of a Wi-Fi connection, which is when I first heard all the drama surrounding the show. It was akin to watching a mushroom cloud from a distance, being very disconnected from it and yet being able to see it in all its devastation. In all honesty, if it weren't for said drama, I probably would have forgotten about the show by the time I came back home, because seeing the internet blow up over this is what motivated me to actually binge the entire thing as soon as I returned. And it's Now, if you're not familiar with the He-Man lore, basically they live on a planet called Eternia that's filled with magic, and there's this castle Grayskull that has all the secrets of said magic inside of it. The forces of Snake Mountain, led by Skeletor, want to get these secrets, and so to defend the castle, Prince Adam uses the magic sword to transform into He-Man, basically a JoJo stand. In his adventures, he is aided by his pet green tiger Cringer, yes that's his name, who has a stand of his own called Battle Cat, Man-at-Arms, the royal weapons master and advisor, his adopted daughter Teela, who is the captain of the Royal Guard, and Orko, a small troll from a parallel dimension who has very powerful magic abilities but can barely control them, so he's kinda unreliable most of the time. Only Cringer, Man-at-Arms, and Orko know that Adam is He-Man, while it's kept a secret from everyone else in order to protect Adam's identity, even though it's kinda obvious. This may be the dumbest thing I've ever heard since Clark Kent and his glasses. The show begins as expected. Skeletor attacks Grayskull and the gang arrive to stop him. However, this time it's different because Skeletor actually wins. He successfully releases all of the magic in Eternia, but subsequently creates a blast powerful enough to eradicate reality, so the Grayskull sorceress stops time for a while and gives Adam the chance to contain the explosion using the Sword of Power. This results in the universe being saved, however both Adam and Skeletor are killed in the process. Later in the castle, everyone is celebrating the end of the war when Man-at-Arms informs the king and queen that He-Man sacrificed himself to save the world. When asked where Adam is, he basically goes, your highness, this isn't how I'd imagine you'd learn this, but Adam is He-Man. And everyone's like, no way! As a result, the king strips Man-at-Arms of his titles and banishes him. Which is kind of dumb considering that it wasn't anyone's fault Adam died, but what is even more confusing is Teela's reaction. She's very pissed at Adam, which I can understand, but she's being very aggressive about it and begins to blame others for not telling her a secret their mutual friend asked them to keep, including said friend's parents who the secret was also kept from. She also acts as if that actually changes anything about her relationship with Adam, even though He-Man is just a secret identity that gives him superpowers and Adam's personality or morals don't change when put in the context of him being He-Man. In fact, it's the exact opposite, since he literally just sacrificed himself to save the universe. If that doesn't confirm where his morals stand, I don't know what does. Speaking of which, why is she being mad at her best friend who just died and blames his grieving friends and family for not telling her a secret he kept from her? That's kind of insensitive. You'd think she'd care more about the fact that her friend is gone and died a hero, rather than hating him over a secret that only reinforces how brave and determined he was. Again, I understand her frustration, but calling all your friends liars and saying they betrayed you is kind of an overreaction. You could excuse this as her having a toxic personality or being swayed by emotions, but that would be giving the writers too much credit, because it really doesn't seem like they intended for her to come across as that. Every time the show comes back to this debate, Teela's arguments are always presented as justifiable rather than impulsive, so it looks more like an instance of mischaracterization rather than deliberate choices made by the writers. So a few years pass and Teela is now working as a mercenary alongside her new partner Andra. Apparently, as a result of the blast that killed Adam and Skeletor, all of the magic in Eternia vanished, leaving many to turn to technology. In fact, Teela seems to hate magic now and acts condescending to anything remotely related to it, and yes, it's because she's still pissed at her friends. Wow. When Teela and Andra arrive at Snake Mountain to retrieve an old goblet, they find it to be overtaken by a crazy cult of technology-worshipping cyborgs, which I actually found to be a very intriguing idea, since it could not only serve as a piece of world building, but also help develop Tila's character, perhaps by changing her beliefs. But obviously that doesn't happen, and we only see these guys 2 more times over the course of the show. Shame, really. So Tila and Andra are called back to Grayskull, where they find the Sorceress and Cringer working alongside Skeletor's former ally Evil Lyn. Yes, that's her actual name. They explain that since Eternia is powered by magic and it's kinda gone now, the entire planet is basically about to die. In order to save the world, they have to find the Sword of Power, which was apparently separated into 2 halves, one in hell, the other in heaven basically, and use it to restore magic. And what do you think? Tila starts another rant about how they're all dirty liars and that magic deserves to die. The reason why she hates magic, why she refuses to help, and why she would let the entire fucking world die is because nobody told her Adam was He-Man. Are you starting to see my point now? Her entire personality is based on her having a grudge that barely makes sense. This is what her character, and by extension the entire show, revolves around. And once again, it's not like they intended for her to come across as toxic, because other than that, she's just a bland protagonist with a generic find the courage arc, and the only bits of character that she has are the parts where she's a bitch to everyone else. Like when they finally convince her to come along and the gang arrives at a village where Man-at-Arms is residing so they can recruit him, she begins to blame him too, and I noticed that she even started referring to him by his first name as opposed to father or dad. And then she goes, "Come along if you want to make it up to me." Like, what the fuck do you mean? And this sets up a plotline where later in the episode Man-at-Arms arrives to save them from evil fish people, and I guess they are friends now? Wow, teenagers must find this so meta, huh? So Man-at-Arms goes back to Grayskull to help the Sorceress protect the castle, while Orko, who's been living with Man-at-Arms and basically dying of cancer since magic is gone, comes along for the ride along with Roboto, who's like a robot clone of Man-at-Arms. The gang finally arrive at the Hell Cave, and this is where perhaps the most frustrating episode of the entire show happens. The team gets separated into groups, with Tila being alone, all of them having to go through a series of challenges to face their fears. This is where we get a scene of Tila fighting a vision of Adam, once again going over old ground and trying to explain/justify Tila's hatred for everyone, nothing new. But then this happens.
Now I know what really frightens you. Most people fear being ordinary.
But you are just the opposite.
What? Where the fuck did that come from? This is supposed to be a defining scene of her arc, where she learns to overcome her insecurities like any run-of-the-mill protagonist does, but not only does it not make much sense, it also has barely anything to do with the already established characterization, which also barely made any sense. This is where Tila's character gets so confusing that the entire show begins to crumble, but oh boy is this nothing compared to what I'm about to tell you. Orko and Lyn end up together in a place that the former quickly recognizes as his home planet of Trolla. After being hit with the realization that because of Magic's disappearance his entire race went extinct and he is now the last of his kind, he begins venting about how much of a disappointment he is. Then both are suddenly attacked by some shadowy monster things, and Orko, with the help of Lyn, manages to successfully cast a spell and defeat them. What you're seeing right now is writing in its natural habitat. Isn't it beautiful? Like, here we have a scene where 2 characters grow as a result of their interaction. Orko becomes more confident in himself, and Lyn becomes less cynical and, well, evil, if you will. It has to be my favorite scene in the show because it finally made me care about the characters. Now, how long do you think it will be before they kill Orko off? 5 minutes! He dies at the end of the same episode. You're telling me they spent the show trying to develop a character with no personality and then proceeded to fully develop a comic relief and give him his own arc within 15 minutes only to kill him off right after that. Why, Kevin Smith? Why? Why must you tempt me so? You fucking killed Orko, the only good character in the entire show. You killed him in cold blood, you son of a bitch. I hope you're happy now. And then when Evil Lyn says that she tried to save Orko but couldn't because she literally had no magic left to do anything, Andra, yeah, she's still here by the way, I also forgot, goes, "You didn't try hard enough." And Tila backs her up by calling their alliance a mistake and preparing to attack Lyn before being suddenly interrupted by the plot. At this point, I am seriously concerned for Tila's mental health, because she might not only be toxic, but also insane. Like, her aggressive outbursts range from uncalled for and exaggerated to just worryingly unsociable. So the gang finds themselves in heaven where they meet Adam, and somehow they don't even bother to tell him what's going on. He just gives them the sword and they take it to a castle to try and merge it again. When Adam asks Tila what's going on, she refuses to tell him, and when he's like, "What, is it a secret or something?" she barks, "Yeah, because you kept some from me." Oh my fucking god! So she does the whole herder, you didn't tell me about He-Man BS again and uses it to justify not telling Adam anything. Bitch, the fate of the universe is at stake. Don't you think that's more important than getting mad about something that didn't even matter years ago? So Roboto successfully manages to merge the sword, however it comes at the cost of his processor malfunctioning and him dying, leading to a scene where Andra suddenly gets very emotional and runs up to him as he dies.
No tears. Don't you see? I feel fear. Ergo, I feel.
Now, Pinocchio bullshit aside, what is the relationship between these two? Like, Andra getting emotional implies that she and Roboto developed some sort of bond, and yet we rarely see them talk to each other. Now, throughout the show it's implied that Andra is a mechanic, which means that there was some kind of technician x technology dynamic, bits of which we can actually see in the Hell Cave episode, but it's given so little screen time that it's practically non-existent, leading to Roboto's death feeling emotionless. As for the Pinocchio thing, in the scene where he first appears, Roboto mentions how he does not feel fear since he's a robot, and that's it. That's the entire setup. His entire arc of gaining emotions consists of two scenes, one where he says he doesn't have them, and another where he says he does now. Wow. That's like literally the least you could have possibly done with this fucking plotline. So I didn't give a shit for Roboto's death or Andra's sorrow because both of these arcs were virtually non-existent to me up until that point. My brain didn't even know I was supposed to care. Then we get this scene where Adam is told that if he comes back to the world of the living, he will not be able to get back into paradise and will die the natural way. So Adam decides to essentially sort of sacrifice himself in order to help his friends, which is a nice, much needed character moment. 10 minutes later, he restores magic and immediately gets fatally stabbed by Skeletor and dies, presumably forever this time. This leads to Skeletor taking the sword and transforming into his own version of He-Man, which is where the show ends. Now, I don't actually dislike this twist in concept. Skeletor suddenly coming back, killing Adam, and becoming a master of the universe has the same vibe to it as an episode of a Sad AM cartoon where the villain unexpectedly wins and you have to wait until next week to find out how the heroes will fight back. Same with Adam being killed off in the first episode, actually. It's unexpected and makes you want to see what happens next. Now, I thought that having the lead character die in the first episode implied that the rest of the show would be spent on essentially reviving him, so that the second half of the show would be all about it. As you've probably guessed though, that's not the direction the show was going in. They had no plans of reviving Adam, not even when he was right there asking what their plan is. But even then, bringing him back in the last episode only to kill him right after is kind of dumb and repetitive. Now, I actually kind of understand what the writers were going for, because everything I said about the show so far could be explained away with either they are secretly doing this on purpose because they actually hate He-Man and this is all a big troll, or they're trying to make the show seem dark and hardcore compared to the original by filling it to the brim with character deaths and twists. And considering how Kevin Smith has reportedly gushed about the brutality of the show, I'm leaning more towards the second option. Although knowing Kevin Smith, it could be the first two, but I'd rather not accuse him of anything. He seems to be extra harsh to small YouTubers. So it kind of feels like they put both deaths / twists in the show to empathize just how brutal the series is to its characters compared to the original. And even though they succeeded at making me hate them for killing Orko, overall I think their strategy didn't work very well and ended up kinda screwing over the entire show. Overall, I kinda get what Kevin Smith and others were trying to do here, and a lot of their ideas sound really good on paper, and a lot of the criticism does sound kind of butthurt and blown out of proportion. However, I do have to agree that the execution overall is very poor. The writing is mid at best, the characters are dull and their relationships are poorly explored, with the protagonist given a lot of time to develop her non-existent character, while the only character with real personality and growth is killed off right as his arc is finished. There is still hope for the show, as many of its plotlines could be expanded on or recontextualized in the second half, but I doubt it's going to do much considering how much damage has already been done. The only thing that kept me interested in the show was the world the story was set in, but that's not a very strong card because that just makes me want to revisit some of the series' older content instead of continuing to watch whatever this is. I guess the animation was also good, although the numerous instances of production errors where characters suddenly glitch out or move a few pixels did kind of take me out of the experience. So I completely understand why the He-Man fanbase is mad at this, because not only is the original source material capable of so much more, I think a series held in such high regard deserves better than such horrendous levels of writing. I personally find it weird how most of the criticism of the show I've encountered is about how the show is liberal propaganda because, oh, they made Teela a strong independent woman and some side characters black. Now, whether or not you think these changes from the source material are good or not is entirely up to you. I just want to clarify that by the virtue of me not being familiar with the original series, I can get away with not engaging with this argument because it usually boils down to Nazi versus SJW, which are never productive and never end well. So I want to make it very clear that my criticism of the show comes from what I legitimately consider to be examples of bad writing and not from any political agenda. I don't care that Teela is a strong independent woman, or that she has a punkish haircut now, or that she's supposedly gay. I care that she is a confusing character with a badly written arc who comes across as a total bitch to the writer's incompetence, and that she and her supposed girlfriend have absolutely no chemistry and rarely show any compassion for each other, neither romantic or platonic. And if you disagree with my assessments, that's great. I'd love to see actual discussion about the show's content as opposed to needless drama about politics. So if you disagree with me or have something to add on top of my arguments, then feel free to go to the comment section and state your cause. I'd be happy to read what you guys thought about this. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe if we get 500 likes, I'll watch the second part when it comes out and make a video about it. Anyway, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.